Good morning. My name is Ji-Suk Chung from USEC Korea office. I thank you all for participating in today's U.S. Food Bean Buyers Conference. Here are some announcements before we begin. We will provide simultaneous interpretation, so please select the language of your choice on the screen. Now, this is the agenda for today. After the welcome remarks, we will have presentations from 4 distinguished experts, and each presentation will be followed by a Q&A session. So if you have any questions, please enter those on the screen. And we also have representatives from major suppliers. They will say hello during the last session, so stay with us till the very end. And the Korean participants, I'd like to ask you to fill out our survey before the end of the conference. We'd like to invite Mr. Hyung-Suk Lee, Korea Country Director of USEC. Good morning. My name is Hyung-Suk Lee, Korea Country Director of USEC. Thank you for joining the U.S. Food Bean Buyers Conference. Every year, USEC has invited members of the soy food industry to meet with U.S. suppliers and exchange information on the U.S. food bean crop and the market. Unfortunately, we gather in a virtual setting again this year rather than in person. I truly hope that we can meet face-to-face next year to discuss the new market environment and trade opportunities. Unlike the U.S., where soybeans are mainly used to produce oil, Korea has over many years consumed soybeans as a food source of protein and fat. We have eaten soybeans in the form of whole beans, tofu, sauce and paste, soy milk, bean sprouts, and other diverse food applications. I'd find it quite surprising if there were no soy food served in any given day. Owing to this traditional demand, last year Korea imported 280,000 metric tons of food beans for soy food. We also imported 1 million metric tons of soy for crushing, 390,000 tons of soybean oil, and 1.88 million tons of soybean meal for livestock feed, which, if converted to soybean volume, add up to an annual import volume of about 5.6 million metric tons. Last year, the U.S. supplied 77% of imported food soybeans, 42% of soy for crushing, and 90% of soybean oil. Domestic production in Korea in 2020 was 81,000 tons. In other words, over 98% of our soybean demand relies on imports. So, needless to say, efforts to buy quality beans are absolutely important. Now, today's conference is joined by about 70 people from Korea's soy food industry and representatives from 9 U.S. suppliers who supply food beans. I hope this event will engage you in in-depth discussions on various factors that affect the food bean market, as well as on characteristics of U.S. food beans, and assist you in your soy purchase decision-making processes. The speakers today are as follows. First, Mr. Bill Bayless, soybean farmer from Ohio and director of USB. Mr. Ken Dalmeyer, president of Clarkson Grain. Mr. Wok Bugnair, oil and soy feed programs director. And Mr. David Tegeter, USEC consultant. I thank you all. And following me to offer some remarks will be Ms. Ross Leek, Northeast Asia Regional Director, and Mr. Mark Dries, the new Agriculture Ministry Counselor of the U.S. Embassy to the Republic of Korea. Thank you, and stay safe and healthy as always. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to invite the NEA Regional Director of USEC, Ms. Rosalind Leek.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Lee. First of all, let me just say good morning. My name is Rosalind Leek. I have the privilege of being the Regional Director for Northeast Asia for the U.S. Soybean Export Council. I want to thank you for your participation today. It is certainly nice to see you all. U.S. Soy has had an office in Korea for more than 40 years, and Korea, as Dr. Lee highlighted, is one of the most important markets for U.S. food bean exports. The entire industry appreciates the preference Korean end users have for our food soybeans, and we look forward to continuing to be your supplier. Sustainability is increasingly discussed in terms of ESG management. We have the Soy Sustainability Assurance Protocol verifying that U.S. soybeans are produced sustainably. As a result, using U.S. soybeans can help you meet your ESG requirements and commitments to UN Sustainable Development Goals. We are able to provide you certificates, and we also have a sustainable soy logo that you can place on packaging or marketing materials to help differentiate your products. The U.S. soy industry continuously strives to provide better service to our global customers. One example is a new tool, the Food Bean Database, which will be introduced by my colleague Will McNair in a few moments. You will see various U.S. soy varieties and be able to choose the right one for your operation to meet your needs. Additionally, we recently have introduced the High Lake soybean, which we believe has tremendous opportunities in the food industry. I won't speak much longer because I know you want to hear from our distinguished speakers rather than me. However, before signing off, I do want to give you a quick update on the COVID-19 situation and vaccination progress in the United States, as well as an outlook for trade teams and travel. We are making very good progress in the States. As of today, 43% of the US population has received at least one dose, with about 30% of the population fully vaccinated. In total, over 142 million people have received at least one or both shots. We are slowly beginning to see some things start to appear more normal. However, we aren't there yet, and we know the rest of the world isn't either. We will continue to deliver our programs utilizing all available means. And as such, GTE, the Global Trade Exchange, which is our large global conference that is held generally in August or September, it will be held this August in St. Louis. But however, given the uncertainty of travel, the format will be a hybrid. You may get registration information from your local USEC staff very soon. So stay safe until we meet in person in Korea or in a soybean field in the United States. 감사합니다.
Thank you. Next, we would like to hear from Mark Dries, Agricultural Minister Counselor from the U.S. Embassy to Korea.
안녕하세요. 저는 미국 대사관 농무장사관 Mark Dries입니다. Having just arrived here in Seoul, I'm going to switch over to English for the rest of my remarks. And indeed, it's my great pleasure to have this USEC conference be the first U.S. industry-hosted event that I'm attending since arriving in Korea, albeit virtually given the continued COVID conditions, both here and back in the United States. So, on behalf of the U.S. Embassy and USDA, I'd like to express appreciation to all the participants. And I understand that we have a broad swath of industry gathered here, including Korean soy food manufacturers, they're representing associations, soybean traders, U.S. soybean growers and suppliers, and many others. So thank you very much for taking time from your busy schedules to attend. The Korean market for U.S. food bean exports is extremely important to the United States and our growers. And I'm certain you will be hearing that message in more detail throughout this event and then throughout the marketing year ahead. In fact, Korea ranks as our #2 market for U.S. food bean exports annually, importing about 280,000 metric tons, of which about 80% is sourced from the United States. This position and that very valuable trade flows in part from the Korea-U.S. Free Trade Agreement between our countries, which provides for zero tariff entry for U.S. food beans. But it's not all about the duty treatment for our product. A lot of hard work and cooperation also goes into achieving such a result. And in that regard, I'd like to recognize the very important collaboration between USDA and our FAS Seoul offices with USEC and its Seoul office here to facilitate the food bean trade between Korea and the United States. We work very closely together in sharing market intelligence and promoting opportunities such as this one to reach out and communicate with our Korean customers, and then of course ultimately with Korean consumers. So once again, thank you very much for attending, and we hope you find this virtual conference beneficial for your continued great support and purchasing of U.S. soybeans. Thank you very much. 감사합니다.
Thank you very much. The first presentation will be delivered by Mr. Bill Bayliss, a farmer and director of USB. He will talk about a farmer's perspective and give an update on the planting progress in the U.S.
Good day to my friends in South Korea. I welcome being with you by Zoom today. As we all know, we would rather be in person. I've been with you folks in the past there, enjoy your country, but today we're going to do it by Zoom, and I will try to share a farmer's perspective of food grade soybean happenings this spring from Ohio. This is the location where I'm at, which is in the middle of the grain belt of the United States. And you can see by the red dot there, more the northern part. I always like to say it's the Napanee Valley of soybean production because our soil types, our temperature climates create a preferred food grade texture, protein, flavor that's popular around the world. About my farm, I am a first generation farmer, which is kind of unusual here, but there I found always a first generation of something someplace. But I'm quite proud of the fact that I started not being a farmer and have accomplished that goal. Of course, now I'm with the white hair that some of you have known from the past. I have the next generation coming in, and here's a picture of even the third generation young folks that's very interested in coming in behind that. Currently, we're growing soybeans, corn, and wheat on about 1,600 acres of cropland here in the United States. About 50% of it's soybeans, 40% corn, 5% wheat, and 5% hay. We've got on-site storage capacity of 175,000 bushels, or approximately 4.753 metric tons. And I'm transitioning this farming operation over to this next generation of my daughter in the middle, her husband, David, and their 3 children beside him. This is an aerial view of the home farm where I live in the house in the lower right, and our grain setup and storage buildings there in the background. The sustainability practices is important nowadays, has been really in the United States. As a farmer, we try to make our soil better than it was when we got it, to pass it to the next generations coming up. But you'll notice we do no tilling there on the left of the soybeans and existing mulch. There in the middle is a unique form. We even are sustainable in our forestry. We've got some logging practices where we have the forester do selective harvesting of the mature trees, get them out of the way so the smaller trees have sunlight to grow up. On the right, I have my air seeder sowing rye into corn stalks that we just harvested, but we left 12 rows of corn over there next to the trees. That's for wildlife food in the wintertime. You notice down in the middle bottom there, if you look close, you'll see a large white-tailed deer with large antlers there. And those deer just love that wildlife plot for food through the wintertime. At the bottom right is where we've planted cover crops or forage along the edge of our small streams there to keep the nutrients out of the water and up in the field. So we're all about trying to take care of the environment and make it better, hopefully, for future generations. Now we get into the 1920-21 crop that we're just about ready to plant. The weather's looking favorable at the time, but Mother Nature's always throwing us the curve. You never know what's going to happen next, but right now it looks like we're going to start with our planting here in the next couple weeks, and the ground conditions appear to be good. The weather forecast appears to be promising, so we're going to plant about 800 acres or approximately 323 hectares of soybeans this year, about 640 acres or 258 hectares of corn, 80 acres or 32 hectares of wheat, and 80 acres or 32 acres of hay. Our growing season here this year, we're optimistic, as I said, of the new crop year, but it all depends on the weather conditions this summer. As we move into harvest, well, back up from harvest last fall, which prepares us for this spring, we did get it completed in a timely fashion, so we didn't end up working that over the winter, and we've been able to spend the winter concentrating on preparing for our spring planting operations and getting our equipment and supplies in ready to go. Our marketing plans are the fact that we've already finished pricing and delivered most of last year's crop, and we're moving into this 2021 year crop optimistic with the improved prices on our end and the growing condition. As the growing conditions progress through the summer, we will probably start forward contracting prices, bushels, as we feel confident we'll have those bushels to fulfill our contracts. Our wheat is sold at harvest delivery, and our hay goes to local cattle operations. Now, moving into our IP soy food beans, my delivery facility works to develop a soy trait that for protein, texture, and taste that you as our customer desires. Our objective is to maintain the segregation of that variety through the growing season and into the handling, storage, delivery, all the way to the end user. Here's the bags that we just loaded on the pickup truck of seed of the particular variety. I just grow one variety for food grade, but we're preparing to have everything ready to go as the planting begins. So this is what IP soybean production looks like on my farm. We start after we've got that seed is the first thing. So now we load it into the planters. We've got the planters cleaned out, so there's no leftover seed of a different variety or crop in there. We're very careful to keep all this separated. Then we'll get into the growing season where this is an ideal crop of soybeans coming on. Life's good at this stage. Looks full of blooms and optimistic. I get back in there, maybe spray some plant food on or some maybe a herbicide for weed control to keep the crop performing at its utmost potential. And we arrive at harvest this fall, which is our payday. And right now we've got, looks like sunny skies in this picture and harvest is good. Doesn't always happen that way, but we're optimistic, always a farmer optimist. Finally, we have our storage facilities. You've seen the other photos, so we can keep different varieties, corn, wheat, beans, separated into individual storage to maintain that integrity of the individual variety that you, the customer, has asked for. Finally, you get into the soy food crop update. As a farmer, I have a passion, pride, and joy in growing the highest protein, the quality and the texture that you, the customer, is wanting for your, what's going to end up on your plate as your dinner in your homes there in South Korea. So I thank you very much for being with me this evening. And if you have any questions at this time, I think we'll have some time for some questions. Thank you again.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Bill Bayless. Thank you for sparing time out of your busy schedule during this planting season. I have some questions concerning the progress of your planting right now and if weather conditions are good for your planting work.
Yes, we just started planting 4 days ago. The ground conditions look very good. We've got about 25% of our commercial beans planted already, and probably half of our corn crop is planted just as of today. So we are expecting a rain coming in starting at any time. So that'll stop us, but it doesn't look like a major storm. Bottom line is things are looking pretty good right now. So if this rain doesn't amount to too much, we can get back in the field another day or two. The soil temperature has warmed up, so I think we're going to get a good germination and things look good. So if we're probably a little bit better than the average year. So I'm very optimistic at this time with the spring planting conditions.
Yes, thank you for that. Now, soybean prices are going up, and from the farmer's perspective, they would like to prefer crushing beans or commercial beans compared to non-GM beans. Now, what are your prospects for the U.S. non-GM food bean production going forward?
Good question. Myself, as well as my neighbors, I believe the higher prices are probably going to trend towards more commercial beans just because there is spatial efforts and risk involved with the food grade beans. My personal plans are I'm going to stay with my plan I already have because stop and think about it. We contract or sign our contract for the food grade beans last fall in preparation so they can make sure they got the seed ready for us, which we just got delivered. And so it's you got to really plan ahead. At this stage of the game, I really am not going to plan on switching it. And it's probably a common thing throughout my countryside here. So, commercial beans at this price are simpler, less risk, and they might gain a few acres at the cost to the food grade beans.
Yes, Mr. Bayless.
몇 가지 질문이 더 들어왔습니다.
Yeah, we have a few more questions from the Korean audience.
지금 이제 착유 산업에 종사하시는 분이 질문을 하셨는데
The person from the crushing industry has posed a question.
GMO 대두를 연간 100만 톤 수입해서 착유를 하고 있습니다.
We crush soybeans after importing 1 million tons of GM beans annually. And if we were to replace the GM to non-GM,
미리 전달해야 할지에 대한 질문이
how much in advance do we need to notify you of our needs for non-GM soybeans?
Last fall would be best, or at least ways over the winter. At this time of the year, it's too late for me to switch. I've already got all my inputs in stock here on the farm. So yeah, you got to plan ahead for that.
네, 알겠습니다.
Okay, thank you.
다음 질문으로
Okay, moving on to the next question.
가격에 관련된 질문인데요.
The question concerning price.
미국 대두 파종 면적이 늘어날 거라고 예상을 하면서
We predict that the planting acreage is likely to grow and future prices were coming down, but then recently it's gone up again and the price per bushel has gone up beyond $15. So would you like to make any predictions on price and future price fluctuations as a farmer?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm really brilliant at that, just like the rest of the world. Nobody knows, but we do realize that our supply stocks are getting tight right now. We here in the United States are watching South America just like they're watching us. Mother Nature still got the control over that, but I guess I wouldn't really be worried about it because with the modern day equipment, we can get beans planted here, and it's more about timely rains versus the total rains. So there again, we just got to be optimistic that it'll be somewhat of an average year, even though there's bad spots one place, it'll be offset by a good spot in another place. So I'm planning on an average year. We'll adjust as the year progresses.
Yes, thank you for that. There are two more questions. And I think the first question has already been addressed by Mr. Bayless. So I'll ask just in case you need to add anything. This concerns the domestic market in the U.S. It's been growing. As domestic demand in the U.S. grows, exports may gradually diminish. This is a concern among overseas foreign buyers. What is the demand for non-GM soybeans in the U.S. domestically? And what is your availability for exports of such type of beans?
I feel that the demand for non-GMO beans is higher in an export. So that's where more of those go than what's used. So I don't think there's going to be any reduction in our exports as long as we have the weather to produce the crop. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Yeah, okay. And we have a final question here.
The final question is,
사전 계약이 지금 우리 빌 베일리스 씨 같은 경우는
with regard to foreign contracting,
100% 다 사전
Mr. Bayless,
계약이
you said,
끝나신 것인지
I think you mentioned that you've completed your forward contract at 100%. Is that true? Or do you have any
있으신 건지 궁금합니다.
available soybeans left for sale today?
Last year beans are all sold and delivered. This new crop that we're planting, my food grade beans, I've already signed a contract of and picked up a particular variety that I'm going to grow and deliver this coming fall. All those beans will go to the one processor that I've contracted with already. So it goes back to the fact you need to plan a year ahead to get the supply you're looking for. Not very many beans are left uncontracted, particularly in the food grade variety. The commercial beans, yeah, that's a little different story. But in food grade varieties, I would say the big bulk of those are contracted in the fall or winter before, so we know we've got the right variety of seed that the customer wants.
네,
Yes, thank you very much.
질문이
Actually,
하나
there's
더
one more
들어왔는데,
question.
Thank you for having
One more question came in,
예.
Mr. Bayless.
3월
Okay.
말에 발표된 USDA 파종 면적 전망이
The planting acreage
예상보다 좀
prospect
작았다고
released by
보고
USDA
있습니다.
in March was actually
실제
smaller than
파종
anticipated.
면적이
The actual
더
planting
늘어날
acreage,
가능성이
is there any
있는지요?
likelihood of the
아무래도
actual
가격이
acreage
지금
to
높게
grow?
형성되다 보니까 이 파종 면적에 대한
Because there
관심들이
seems to
never
be a greater
second
interest in the acreage because of the rising prices of soybeans.
I think my own personal opinion is from my neighborhood and across the Corn Belt that the plans have already been made, and I don't see much adjustment.
네, 감사합니다.
Yes, thank you. Yes, in the interest of time, I think we should wrap up with the Q&A session for Mr. Bill Bayless. We hope that you enjoy good weather for good planting and growing season. Thank you very much, Mr. Bayless.
Thank you too.
Next, we would like to hear from the Ken Dalmeyer, CEO of Clarkson Grain, and he's going to talk about non-GM food soybean market outlook.
On behalf of Clarkson Grain, I have the pleasure of wishing you a pleasant day with good health and safety. This is Ken Dalmeyer, President and Chief Operating Officer of Clarkson Grain Company. Clarkson Grain was founded in 1974 by Len Clarkson, who was our Chief Executive Officer. From the beginning, we have concentrated upon providing the highest quality soy and corn for the most demanding food companies in the world. We focus upon non-GMO and USDA organic soy and corn that has been produced in the United States. We do not import grain for resale as U.S. origin grain. Many of our food customers have been clients of Clarkson Grain for 15 years, and some have been friends since the 1990s. We treat each customer as a long-term relationship instead of an immediate transaction. I wish to acknowledge the work of the Strategic Marketing Research and Planning Group, whose data presented to USEC on this topic in June of 2020 is the foundation data for this talk. The purpose of their study was to update USEC on non-GM food and feed grade soybean production in the United States, the end use of those soybeans, and their geographic market destination. Strategic Marketing Research and Planning surveyed over 100 non-GMO soybean growers in the United States, 22 domestic buyers and exporters, and 3 state soybean associations. Strategic Marketing also used trusted public data sources of the United States Department of Agriculture. This data was combined to give USEC and the countries, companies, and growers that it serves a trend assessment on the factors impacting non-GMO food-grade soybean markets. The historical and prospective planting report as of the 30th of June 2020 is provided in this slide. While the prospective number of soybean acres on this slide is less than the 31st of March 2021 USDA estimate of 87.6 million acres, or 35.4 million hectares, the trend for non-GMO food soy will likely be similar and will support our thoughts later in the presentation. While 35.4 million hectares has the potential for a huge crop supply, it was not the area expected to relieve overall supply concerns. The area expected to be planted to non-GMO soybeans of all destination is expected to be relatively constant at around 5 million acres or 2.02 million hectares. This represents a supply consistent with the previous 2 crop years. International buyers of U.S. non-GMO soy for food should expect a supply environment similar to the 2020 crop year having just ended. The percent of non-GMO soybeans that are used for human food have remained consistent since 2019, and the area planted to food-grade soybeans in 2021 will likely return to 2019 levels of approximately 45,000 hectares. I apologize that this slide is a bit confusing to read, but we expect the number of hectares to return to between 2019 and 2020 levels. This is consistent with our market intelligence of oversupply of non-GMO food soybeans in Japan warehouses due to the lack of spectators for the Tokyo Olympics and other COVID-19 related factors. The end purpose of soy for human food remains constant, with tofu, soy milk, natto, and miso being the primary uses. Grower production of non-GMO food-grade soybeans is conducted under contract for 88% of the area grown. This will also be the case for the upcoming 2021 crop year, with nearly all of the non-GM foods grade soy produced for export under contract. For buyers who do not have production contracts already in place, the market swings of supply and demand will likely not work in their favor. At Clarkson Grain, we contract with growers for 2021 beginning in August of 2020 to secure the best growers and the best production land. Varieties are determined, seed is secured, and grower premiums are announced well before the crop is planted. Crop revenue premiums for food grade non-GMO soybeans are expected to be consistent with previous years. Non-variety specific premiums were $1.70 per bushel in 2020 in the Strategic Marketing Research and Planning Group study, or $62.46 per metric ton. variety-specific premiums that meet or exceed buyer expectations and specifications are expected to be higher depending upon expected yield and the grower's experience with the variety. The cost of identity preservation, cleaning, and packaging must also be considered when determining the total cost per ton of the transaction. Now, with the comfort of hard data supported by government analysis and third-party surveys behind us, we go into the more speculative part of our discussion. It is well to remember that these opinions are from a single source and based upon the conditions present on the 17th of April, 2021. Another presenter may see the world differently, and market volatility has become the norm. That being said and understood, let's continue and move on. The past 12 months have seen unprecedented volatility in soybean futures and in non-GMO food-grade soy prices which are related to them. Since September 2020, on the left side of this graph, the value of the May 2021 futures contracts have increased by 50%. What was once a stable price level and predictable cost structure became the eater of margins for unprotected buyers. Non-GMO food-grade soy can be hedged using standard futures contracts, which makes the actual price neutral to this risk. Your USEC member exporter can help you understand risk so you are not in the position to hope the price declines in order to maintain your margins and your domestic customers' price and shipping expectations. USDA organic food grade soy contracts are usually on a flat price contract and are not affected by futures prices. The supply and demand curves of organic products are not tightly linked to their non-organic siblings. If you have contracts to import organic soybeans, your price was likely established at planting time and has not moved with the CME futures contract. That being said, other global forces are coming into play that have reduced the legitimate supply of organic soy, which will tend to increase spot prices for organic soybeans. Let us be clear. The year 2020 and 2021 will likely be better left to the history books. COVID-19, African swine fever, U.S. trade tensions, Phase 1 agreements, and economic uncertainty all contributed to what we see on this slide. This is a screenshot of commercial shipping associated with the Port of Los Angeles on the 17th of April 2021 at 2000 hours, 8 p.m. Central U.S. time. Every green or red dot represents a vessel at 0 knots. The port is over full, and the parking area is also full. It is commonly thought that this situation will not abate until October when holiday shipping to the United States begins to slow. The current shipping situation has congested ports and warehouses. This congestion has forced railroad rates to raise almost 600%. In many cases, shipping embargoes have been implemented. Shipping container shortages in the interior of the United States have worsened and now include all major inland ports. Importers with spot market strategies are being severely punished by logistics and price. Companies with strategies of early shipping have product in their customers' hands. Forward planning and early decisions save pain during a time of volatility. U.S. planting progress. Here we see a map of the United States soy growing regions labeled by maturity zones 0 through 6. 0 being the northern or top maturity zone, 6 being in the southern growing area of the United States. The southern zones in the dark colors have had good planting progress and adequate rainfall. Some delays have occurred, but they are generally on time. Maturity Group 3 is through the central soybean belt and has just begun soybean planting as of the 15th of April 2021. Weather forecasts are favorable for rapid planting progress even as temperatures cool during this week. Soil temperatures are not yet warm enough in middle April to test soybean planting progress in maturity zones 2 and earlier. Forecast weather in late April appear favorable precipitation but cooler temperatures. One would expect Canada growers to be waiting on warmer soil temperatures to begin large-scale fieldwork. Some final thoughts as we conclude this presentation. While the market year 2020 is best locked away in the history books, U.S. soy is open for business in 2021 and beyond. The United States has large soybean growing regions that mean your production risk is low, and we can help you manage your price risk. U.S. soy is the most sustainably grown soybean in the world, with best-in-class quality control, so you can be assured of the highest quality and variety purity. U.S. soy is your producer of choice. The U.S. soy grower is able to produce anything that the market demands. U.S. soy can produce non-GMO and organic for human food, and the highest quality, sustainable technology commodity soy for value-conscious customers. The key lesson from 2020 is that early planning and execution is wise for the importer customer and the exporting grower. Start planning now for 2022, even perhaps before the 2021 crop has been planted. Work with your export partner to secure the best growers, the best land, and the best varieties for your application. thank you for your kind attention. We wish you, your family, and your companies a safe and healthy spring season.
Thank you very much for your great presentation, Mr. Ken Dalmeyer. So you talked about the non-GM food soybean market outlook, which is very useful to deepen our understanding. You videotaped the presentation about 2 weeks ago, but are there any updates for the market situation since then?
Yes, can you hear me well? Yes, very good. Since the time our video was recorded, we have had a little light snow, then warm and sunny again. For the past 10 days, U.S. growers have been planting crops with soybean progress well above the 5-year average currently. In my local area, we are about 25 to 50% complete, and the soil moisture looks very good. Soybeans on my farm have emerged and look good, but we were planted in very early April. Soil moisture rather appears to be adequate in most of the areas of the central and southern soybean regions, with dry conditions in the north and in the west. And as I look out my window, I see a little bit of the storm that will be headed to Mr. Bayless probably by tomorrow morning. So we're getting some good rain. We're expecting about 2 centimeters of rain in the next 24 hours.
While we are having the Q&A, we got some questions from the audience. The first question is about yield. So for the non-GMO soybean and GMO soybean, are there differences in terms of yield? That's the first question.
Yes, in many cases, for commodity soybeans, there is much less yield difference between non-GMO and GMO trait soybeans. For food grade soybeans, because they're a specific quality, higher protein or higher oil, that is more expensive, if you will, for a plant to produce. And it oftentimes results in a lower grain yield for the non-GMO food grade soy versus the commercial GM feed grade soybean.
네, 감사합니다.
Thank you very much for the answer. The second question is about the organic soybean. So the U.S. farmers, for the supply of the organic soybean, especially non-GMO guarantee, do they have some sort of pressure? And we actually experienced the situation that they had some pressure, so it was difficult to have trade with them. So for the supply of the organic soy, is it something that's difficult for the U.S. growers to provide, to supply? For Korean buyers, especially for non-GMO, guaranteed organic soybean, will there be any guarantees that can be provided to the Korean buyers?
So thank you for your question. One thing I think we need to understand is to be part of the USDA organic supply chain, the seed that is planted must be non-GM. So that it is forbidden to plant a GMO soybean and have it certified as USDA organic. So the supply of organic soybeans in the United States has been restricted primarily by the number of acres that are available, but that is that number is rising in 2021, 2022, and 2023. But it's also a factor of the global marketplace, and as we have seen recently, there is some concern about the legitimacy of non-U.S. Origin organic soybeans. So the Korean buyer should be very careful to know and trust their supplier, and they can have good faith in the U.S. Grower and U.S. exporter, where the civil penalties for fraud are severe and well enforced. The supply of USDA organic soy in the United States is extremely tight right now because of the supply disruption globally, either through COVID or through a questioning of some of the non-U.S. supply certification practices for organic soy. Within our supply chain, that supply is extremely tight and will likely be so again in 2021. Thank you.
네, 감사합니다. 계속해서 유기농
Again, regarding
관련된
the organic soy,
질문인데요.
we do have another
발표
question.
중에
During your
유기농
presentation,
콩의
you said that the
가격
organic
결정은
soy
고정
is based
가격으로
on
선물
the
가격에 영향을
flat
받지
price
않는다라고
and it's not linked with
말씀하셨는데요.
the CME
그러면,
price
유기농
fluctuations.
콩은 어떤
Then the
식으로
organic
가격
soy, how the
결정이
price is
되는지
determined?
설명을 좀
Can you elaborate on the process of the pricing for the organic soy?
Sure. That price is much more stable and much more a product of supply and demand. It has much less volatility. It is much more historically established as a point in time, and is more established as a revenue per acre rather than a cost per bushel basis.
네, 감사합니다.
Thank you. One last question.
Very good.
For the non-GMO soybeans, there could be a lot of information. For example, like changes in the storage rate, or this year's planting progress, planting plans, growing progress. So we want to get regular update on this information. So from supplier's perspective, to think that can you provide this information on a regular basis to us? And also from USEC, later Will McNair is going to talk about this thing and how this database or data is provided through the USEC website. We are actually providing this information, but maybe suppliers can also contribute. So maybe you can provide more realistic, reality reflecting information to the Korean buyers. Is it possible?
Certainly, it is possible, and I think it should be expected. The buyers who have forward contracted with their exporter should expect to have regular updates about the supply, the growing season, etc. I think I can only speak for Clarkson Grain, but we welcome our buyers to Illinois to come and look at the fields and look at how the crop is progressing. We have experimented last year with taking drone video of of representative fields at specific times in the crop season. So, so our buyers can have a good firsthand view, even if they're not able to travel and come to the United States to see this, to see our crop. So I think it is, it's not only possible, it is, I believe it should be expected. And we would, within Clarkson Grain and our website, we would have videos and videos that would be available to our customers to view, and certainly by email or by regular communication, give good updates about the status of that crop and our ability to fulfill the demand from the buyer.
네, 감사합니다. 네.
One last question. Outlook for the soybean price. Can you please be very brief about this?
This is just my opinion, and I'm sure there are as many outlooks as there are people. The supply and the demand suggest that that the price that you see right now will be maintained. It will become a strong weather market, meaning that if there is a period of dryness or a long period of rain, that will increase the volatility of the market. I believe you would be a rare person indeed who expects the market and the prices for spot purchases to go back to 2019 levels and early 2020 levels. So I believe that is we will see high prices through this crop year.
네, 질문에 대한 답변을 하시는 동안에
We have some additional questions.
아까 질문을 하셨던 분인데
So for the GMO, non-GMO's yield for non-GMO, you said that the yield for non-GMO is lower than that of GMO soybeans. But he actually wants to get some specific figures, the concrete figures. For example, like the GMO soybeans, if the yield is like 50 bushel per acre, then what will be the figure for non-GMO? Can you give us some specific figures for that?
That would be, of course, it is variety specific. You could have examples where the non-GM yielded more. You could have some that non-GM yielded less. But as a rule of thumb, and over the course of time, I would expect a non-GM variety to yield probably 5% less, perhaps 10% less than its traded cousin.
네, 감사합니다.
Thank you. So that was the presentation by the Mr. Dalmeyer. Thank you very much for your time.
Now, as for the next program on the agenda, is a video on the Dare to Compare campaign sustainability. This was mentioned by Ms. Roslick. By using sustainably produced U.S. soy, you'll be able to implement ESG programs at your companies.
미국산 대두가 글로벌 시장에서 1위를 놓치지 않는 데는 이유가 있습니다. 바로 대두의 뛰어난 영양 품질, 종합적인 경제적 가치, 탄탄한 물류 인프라와 일관된 운송 시스템 등입니다. 그러나 미국산 대두의 가장 중요한 특징은 바로 지속 가능한 재배를 위한 노력입니다. 지속 가능한 농업 관행은 미국산 대두의 재배와 생산의 기반입니다. 미국에서 대두와 같은 작물 생산지는 50년 이상 안정적으로 유지되어 왔으며 숲은 증가한 반면 농경지는 같은 기간 동안 감소했습니다. 이런 일이 어떻게 가능할까? 라는 질문의 대답은 간단합니다. 미국의 대두 농부들은 적은 자원으로 큰 수확을 거두는 방법을 찾고자 노력합니다. 우선 농장을 말하자면 매일 밭에서 수많은 지속 가능한 농업 실천이 되고 있습니다. 무경운 농업, 초지 식생대, 희복 작물, 윤작 등 미국은 수자원을 관리하고 야생동물 서식지를 보존하고 생물 다양성을 개선하고자 대두 농부들의 관행 준수를 지원하는 프로그램을 갖추고 있습니다. 또한 수분 센서, 스마트 관계, GPS 기능의 자율주행 트랙터, 드론, 위성 영상 등 첨단 도구로 믿을 수 있는 농작물을 생산하고 천연 자원의 소비를 줄입니다. 이러한 조치는 큰 영향력을 발휘하여 연료 사용 절감, 온실가스 배출량 절감, 토양 다짐 방지, 토사, 물, 누출 방지 등 지속 가능한 성과로 이어집니다. 미국산 대두는 2000년에 시작된 환경적 영향 및 벤치마크에 따라 향후 5년간 수확량과 지속 가능성 목표를 설정했습니다. 2025년까지 미국 대두 생산자들의 목표는 이렇습니다. 토지 이용의 영향을 10% 줄이고 토양 침식을 25% 더 줄이고 에너지 사용 효율성을 10% 높이고 총 온실가스 배출량을 10% 줄이는 것입니다. 이러한 노력은 농장에서만 이루어지지 않습니다. 지속 가능성은 대두 가치 사슬의 전 과정에서 핵심 목표입니다. 미국은 종합적인 인증 시스템인 미국산 대두 지속 가능성 보증 규약 SSAP를 출범했으며 이는 전국의 지속 가능한 대두 생산을 인증하는 제3의 감사를 받습니다. SSAP는 지속 가능성에 관한 4가지 지침, 생물 다양성, 지속 가능한 생산 관행, 공중 및 노동 건강, 지속적인 관행 개선을 제시하고 평가합니다. 또한 지난해 미국의 대두 농부들은 기아 종식, 환경 보호 및 인류의 평화와 번영을 도모하는 17가지 목표인 UN 지속 가능 개발 목표와 직접 연계된 전략적 목표를 수립하려는 프로젝트를 시작했으며 측정 가능한 변화를 위한 로드맵을 개발하고 있습니다. 지금뿐 아니라 미래에도 미국산 대두의 지속 가능성 노력은 계속 이어집니다. 증거가 더 필요하신가요? 미국 대두 수출위원회 USB는 최근 네덜란드의 컨설팅 회사 블롱크 컨설턴츠의 도움을 받아 다음 질문에 답변했습니다. 미국산 대두의 탄소 발자국은 다른 대두 생산국에 비해 어느 정도인가? 블롱크는 전과정 평가를 통해 대두 1kg, 수입국에서 생산된 대두박 1kg, 원산지에서 생산된 대두박 1kg을 비교했습니다. 경작, 토지 이용 변화, 운송 및 가공 등을 고려할 때 대두가 가금류 생산의 탄소 발자국에 미치는 영향은 미국산 대두로부터 생산된 대두박을 사용했을 때 더 낮았습니다. 이는 반박할 수 없는 팩트입니다. 지속 가능한 농업과 지속적인 혁신으로 미국산 대두는 더 건강한 지구에 기여합니다. 미국산 대두는 타 국가에서 재배되는 대두와는 차원이 다른 지속 가능성 솔루션을 제공하여 글로벌 소비자와 투자자의 요구에 부응합니다. 또한 지속 가능성 인증에 대한 추가 비용 부담이 없습니다. 지속 가능성 인증을 받은 미국산 대두는 최상의 품질과 최고의 경제적 선택으로 항상 탁월한 가치를 제공합니다. 미국산 대두의 지속 가능성 노력에 대해 자세히 알아보려면 오늘 미국산 대두 지역 담당자에게 문의하십시오.
Now the next presentation will be delivered by Mr. Will McNair, Director of Oil and Soy Food Programs at USEC. He will provide a preview of the US Specialty Soy Database.
Hi, good morning. My name is Will McNair, and I'm the Worldwide Director of Oil and Soy Food Programs here at the U.S. Soybean Export Council. I'm happy to be here today to be able to provide you with a preview of the U.S. Specialty Soy Database. Now, the U.S. Specialty Soy Database has been some work that's been ongoing within U.S. soy food stakeholders for a little over a year now. In fact, work began on creating the database for the specialty soy, U.S. specialty soy products, starting this past January in 2020. In fact, during that time period, there had been 9 meetings between January and August of 2020 between domestic, U.S. domestic, as well as international stakeholders to provide a framework and information for a U.S. Specialty Soy Database. Essentially, what this group was looking at doing and what the stakeholders helped to develop was the idea and the framework around a catalog of commonly contracted U.S. soy food beans. What we were seeking to do with this was to be able to provide you all as international customers, as well as domestic stakeholders and others, information on different IP soy food beans that are being grown in the U.S., some of their quality attributes, as well as information on providers and growers of these beans. To that end, we started working this past August up until now, working with suppliers in order to receive samples of specialty soybeans that we would be doing information on. We would be gathering information on their qualitative as well as quantitative aspects of the beans, as well as just trying to find general information and try to catalog as much of the U.S. soybean production as possible, U.S. specialty soybean production as possible. To that end, we work with various U.S. exporters as well as suppliers, and more than 25 companies from the U.S. help to provide samples, more than 500 samples of 120 different varieties of IP specialty soybeans that are commonly used with food application. Now, this is a program that I'm about to show you in a minute, and specifically the database is our year one, our first go at making this go live. Now, however, I should state though, all the information I'm about to provide is initial, and what we are looking to do is have this specialty soy database be something that is ongoing, so that you can learn more about U.S. soybean varieties that are being grown in the U.S. throughout the year, as well as so you can learn some of the quality attributes and learn who to be able to work with. So without further ado, here's a first look at this specialty soy database. Now, this was set up, again, with input from various international buyers and customers to be able to provide you all with as much information that you may need as customers. I should warn you, though, what I'm about to show you is, this is a beta look at the website. And in fact, some of the functionality on it is not fully live. We're expecting to have this go live in about a month to a month and a half. So what I'm showing you now is a preview of it with some of the data that is stand-in data and is not the full data. So with that in mind, let's say you are an international tofu manufacturer saying, I want to learn more about the different tofu beans that are grown in the US. What you'll be able to do is go to this database, which will be housed on ussoy.org, and say, look at tofu beans. And this will pull up all the varieties that are listed as tofu beans. Conversely, if you are a miso or a natto producer, you can also click on these to be able to find out more about beans that are being grown in the US that are grown for miso, natto purposes. In total, we're looking to be able to provide information for international buyers on beans that are intended for miso, natto, soy milk, soy sauce, soy sprouts, tofu, general use, as well as looking forward into the future, more information on high oleic soybeans. Now, what the database will allow you to do is also search by different metrics. So say you don't want to look just at tofu beans or soy sauce beans. You can instead search by seed size, protein level, hilum color, or GMO, or the type of bean. So whether it's GMO, non-GMO, or organic. Now, it's worth it to note within the protein range, we will have a button so you can click between 13% moisture as well as dry matter basis. So you can search for the type of bean based upon your specific characteristics that you need. Now, with that intro, say you've clicked on this, you found the different protein range, and you want to learn more about a particular variety. You'll be able to click on the variety and it will pull up a page. Now, again, this information is all coming from samples we've received from US suppliers that we then have done quality characteristics for. So we have worked with the University of Minnesota as well as the Northern Crops Institute to be able to do some quality analytics to say what are some of the, what is the composition of the beans, as well as what is some additional information. So once you get on this page, you'll be able to see a picture of the bean. You'll be able to find out more information about the intended uses. So for example, if this is a miso, natto, a soy milk bean, what that is, whether it's a GMO or non-GMO, the color of the bean, the size, you'll be able to have some basic information about where these beans are being able to be grown, as well as, and I think this is one of the more important parts, some of the composition or the estimated composition you may get for the beans. So this will show, based upon the samples we've received and the analysis we've done, the protein in terms of the ranges, the oil in terms of the ranges and averages we've seen on the beans we've received, sucrose, raffinose, stachyose, essential amino acids, the fatty acid profile, color, as well as isoflavones. Now, it's important to note that all this information is based off of the samples we've received, as well as some of the quality analysis that we've done at these two universities. If you do see a bean that you do have a lot of interest in, please reach out to your supplier who will be able to provide you with samples so you can do your own internal analysis. Additionally, for certain beans, we've actually done tofu as well as soy milk analysis, specifically looking at the yield from the beans, the color of either the soy milk or the tofu, as well as the texture. So with that information, you should be able to get have an idea about what this means for your particular end use, whether you're a soy milk or a tofu manufacturer. So let's say, great, you found the type of soybean that really makes sense for you. What you can do then is click on Find Seed Providers, and this will pull up a page where you can look at all the different seed suppliers who may be able to provide you with that bean. Again, this is initial right now, so you're only seeing one company and their logo on here. But what you'll be able to see is the types of companies that, or all the companies that can provide you with these beans, information about the company, a brief description, their website, contact information for who you can get in touch with about potentially supplying those beans, the types of varieties they offer, so you can learn more about all the different varieties they may be able to set up a program with you for, the certifications you can get, so if you're looking for a organic standard or non-GMO verified standard, kosher, halal, what they can offer you, as well as the packaging available. So this would be information like, can you get a 50 kg bag? Are they able to provide metric ton totes? Or can they provide it in container or even bulk? So with this, of course, our goal is that this helps you to start a conversation with potential suppliers. A lot of the beans that you may find on the website may be available for spot market purchase. But if they're really specialty, if they have very unique characteristics, you may have to work with potential suppliers to actually set up a program. And later in this event, you'll be able to hear from a colleague of mine, Dave Tegeter, who will give you an idea about some of the timelines you may need in order to set up an IP program. So once you, again, understand, you reach out, you can get a lot of information from these suppliers and help to start that conversation to ensure that you get the beans that you need. Additionally, we will have some additional information on our website. You'll be able to log out and be able to go from our website to USDA's website, USEC's website, SSGA website, as well as various other resources so you can learn more about the types of beans that you need, as well as maybe characteristics and growing conditions in the US. Now, our goal is, again, to have this be fully functional, not only in Korean, but a number of other languages as well, including Japanese, Mandarin, Spanish, as well as others. So I thank you for your time today, and I really hope that you may be able to get some use out of this specialty soy website. Now, this will be again going live sometime in the next month and a half. And so if you have any questions about it, and once we get it rolled out, you will, I'm sure, be seeing some information from our Korea USEC staff. But feel free to reach out to myself, any suppliers who you may be working with, and of course, our USEC staff who can help you with anything. Thank you very much for your time today, and I look forward to answering any questions that you may have.
In the course of listening to Mr. Will McNair's presentation, I think you saw the screen stuck on thank you. It is clearly a technical problem that we encounter here. Apologies for that. We will provide you with the presentation materials as well as the video so that you'll be able to look at them later on at your leisure. Once again, apologies. And Mr. Will McNair, as I mentioned, bring my welcome remarks. I mentioned the Specialty Soy Database as an example of the many efforts we provide to serve our customers. And I apologize to Mr. Will McNair since we were not able to show the Korean buyers the full video in its proper format. So, Mr. McNair, could you give us a short demo once again using the video on how a buyer, an importer, can access information on a particular bean variety that the company desires?
The database and try to walk you through it. Hopefully, this will go quickly. And again, I do apologize. It did appear that we had some technical issues. As was stated on the presentation, you will be able to search by intended use, including miso, natto, soy milk, soy sauce, soy sprouts, tofu, as well as we're looking to implement a high oleic section. So you can look for both high oleic soybeans for food consumption as well as for oil. You will also be able to search via protein and hilum color, as well as other attributes. Once you do this, it will pull up the different varieties, and then you can click on a variety page to learn more, including where the beans are grown, the protein, as well as the composition of the bean, including protein, oil, sucrose, raffinose, essential amino acids. There is information on tofu and soy milk yields for certain soy food beans, as well as, again, you can click on this to be able to get in touch with seed suppliers who will be able to help supply you with these particular needs. Again, I am sorry for some of the technical problems. This is a beta database, but with this, you will be able to have a lot of functionality in searching for beans based upon what you need, as well as learning more about the different varieties that are grown, compositional aspects and such. So I am sorry again for some of those technical problems, but please note that when this goes live, we can work with you to be able to have you be able to see this and better understand some of the varieties that exist in the US. As was stated before, we have around 25 US exporters that have participated in this, and we're expecting more to come on this next year.
Yes, thank you for that, Mr. McNair, and thank you for understanding this unforeseen circumstance. In the course of using the database, I'm sure one could feel how helpful this database would be. Now, when will the buyers here in Korea will be able to actually use this database to select the desired bean and contact the supplier? When will be the official open target date?
Sure. So we are looking to have this go live in about a month to a month and a half. We're just completing some of the information right now based upon input from buyers, USEC staff, as well as exporters. We want to make sure, since this is new, that all the information and everything is correct. So again, it will be live in about a month and a half. We will be working to update this. Excuse me. This will be updated annually. So the information that you're going to be able to see on this will be from the 2020 crop. We will also include a 2021 crop as soon as we're able to get that. And so we're going to start to work with exporters, seed suppliers, and others to update that information starting sometime in September or October for the 2021-22 crop.
네, 감사합니다. 우리 윌 맥네어 씨가 코로나 백신 맞으신
Yes, thank
걸로
you.
알고 있는데
I understand that you
기침을
took the
하셔서 잠깐
COVID-19
긴장했습니다.
vaccine, but you were coughing, so I got scared for a minute there.
한
Yes,
가지
that's correct. I've had both vaccines, so I look forward to being able to ideally travel to Korea sometime. I think that was nerves from having to pull up the database. One thing I would like to add, there was a question previously about updates from the field. So this is something that USEC we've provided in years past. And so I do some outreach to a number of exporters from around the country, including from many of the suppliers you'll see today. And so I do provide that information to our regional staff in Korea, Japan, China, and other places. And so please look forward to those emails. They will start to be coming soon. It will have some updates from, again, a variety of exporters and farmers who are helping to provide updates to us on how the progress of the field is going in different regions and growing areas of the U.S. So stay tuned for that information. Ideally, you'll be able to get one in the next week and a half or so.
네, 감사합니다.
Yes, thank you for that.
데이터베이스의 작동을 시연하실 때
In the course of providing a demo of the database earlier, I saw that, well, for example, you want to make tofu. It's a tofu bean, and you want a certain percentage level of proteins and certain hilum color. You can enter the spec desired and get information on the supplier that could provide that particular variety, right? And okay, we weren't able to get what you said. Did you say something, Mr. McNair, just now?
Yeah. Sorry, I was muted. Correct. You would be able to search by things like protein range or seed size or hilum color to be able to narrow down what you're looking for exactly. So if you're looking for a larger bean, you can click that and put that in here, or the different hilum color, or again, the protein range to help you better understand some of the beans that are available in the US. And again, all the information that you will see on this website comes directly from samples that were provided from exporters, farmers, and seed companies. And again, every exporter you're going to see that is presenting later today has provided samples as well as beans and will be featured on this website. So this will really help you to find exactly what you're looking for. And it will have the suppliers who can help you to get those beans.
네, 바보 같은 질문일지 모르겠지만
This may be a dumb question, but
사용하는데 비용이 듭니까?
do we need to pay an amount to use this database?
No. Thankfully, all of the payment that is, you just need to go on and be able to click on this. There's no cost at all. The cost is coming from, of course, the U.S. farmers, as well as the U.S. government who is helping to pay into USEC to be able to create this database. So no cost is associated, entirely free. It will be available in Korean as well as many other languages for you to be able to look through.
네, 일본에서 질문이 하나 들어왔습니다.
Now, there's a question coming from Japan.
질문은
Here's the question.
일단 영문으로 되어 있는 걸 그대로 읽으면 How will you select varieties to be tested for soy food analysis? 입니다.
Great. So the food analysis, we have received about 150 different varieties. I'm sorry, 130, 150 different varieties of soy food beans from the US, or beans that exporters have indicated that may be used for soy food purposes. How we decided which ones would be used for soy milk as well as tofu, that comes directly from some of the exporters that are working with us on this. We received over 500 samples of soy food beans from around the country, and I think that represents around 130 to 150 different varieties. We only received 70 samples that were additionally tested for tofu and soy milk purposes. So how we decided upon that was what was sent to us by various exporters who wanted to be able to get this information to provide to their buyers. So if you would like to work with, if you see a type of variety that's on the database that you would like more information on, such as the tofu or soy milk yields, please ask a supplier in the US, and they will be able to work with us to be able to include that information in the coming year. So if you do not see all the information you'd like, and you want to have that tofu or soy milk yield analysis, ask us. And again, always work with the supplier to be able to obtain samples, to be able to check some of this by yourself. Any of the suppliers who are on the line today would be very happy to send beans for your analysis so that you can see the quality yourself.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. McNair. Now, this database appears to be very valuable for buyers as well as the suppliers in the U.S. I think it is also a helpful tool for the suppliers in the U.S. as well. Do we have more questions now? Well, it seems that we're depleted in terms of the questions. Well, Mr. McNair, thank you for being so cool with this unforeseen technical situation. The next time you come to Korea, I'll serve you a bottle of beer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lee.
네, 이번 순서에는 미국 대두협회 컨설턴트이신 데이빗
Moving on, we would like to invite David Tediger, the USEC consultant, for his presentation.
Good morning. And for those of you in my half of the world, good evening. I'm Dave Tegeter, and it's a pleasure to be with you today to discuss soyleic, non-GM high oleic soybeans and oil for soy food applications. With high oleic soy's significantly different fatty acid profile, we're really talking about a new soybean that provides excellent stability across the entire food industry. The soyleic trait was developed through partnerships between the University of Missouri, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Missouri Soybean Merchandising Council, and the United Soybean Board, and as a true non-GMO trait, provides value capture opportunities for both the oil and protein components in food and feed applications. Increasing downstream market awareness and growing demand for high oleic soybean oil is fueling interest from both domestic and international processing and export supply chain participants. In addition, the soyleic trait allows for broad access to seed developers to maximize supply chain development locations. In order to understand the benefits of high oleic soy, you first need to understand what makes it have superior functional properties. Regular soybean oil is comprised primarily of polyunsaturated fats. Poly means multiple, and it's these multiple or many double bonds that makes regular soy oil less stable. When an oil is exposed to heat, air, moisture, or reactive metals, these double bonds start to break apart, and that is how an oil degrades and becomes rancid. Fortunately, with advances in plant breeding technologies, the soybean industry had been developing high oleic traits that changed the fatty acid profile within the soybean seed. As you can see, we now have a soybean oil with 75% or greater oleic or monounsaturated fat, with less than 10% residing in the polyunsaturates, and also a 20% reduction in total saturates. So why is this important? When we look at the relative rate of oxidation in fatty acids compared to oleic or monounsaturated fat, linoleic acid is 40 times faster at oxidizing, and linolenic acid is 98 times faster at going rancid. With most of high oleic soy oil's profile now residing as the more stable monounsaturated fat, having only one double bond, this provides a significantly improved heat and oxidative stability over commodity soy and other vegetable oils. And when we compare soyleic against Plenish, the leading industry standard for high oleic soybean oil, you can see that the fatty acid profiles align to the food industry's critical profile targets of having 75% or greater oleic acid and less than 3% linolenic acid. It's also important to note that all of the changes made within the soybean were only to the oil's fatty acid profile. When you analyze the protein from high oleic soybeans, it's nutritionally identical to that of commodity beans. In addition, the beans will have a similar oil and protein content, crush yield, and experience the same seasonal and seed variety variation in composition. I would also like to note that there have been novel benefits of incorporating high oleic soybean oil into animal diets. Studies conducted at Penn State University and the University of Wisconsin demonstrated an increase in milk fat content when whole roasted high oleic soybeans were fed to dairy cattle. Additional studies are being conducted to see if there are other benefits of utilizing full fat high oleic soybean meal in swine, poultry, and aquaculture diets. So what are the performance benefits of high oleic soy? Well, for starters, it's a healthier oil with 0 grams of trans fats per serving, 20% less saturated fats, and high in heart-healthy monounsaturated fat, similar to the amount found in olive oil. It also has 2 to 3 times longer fry life, which translates into fewer oil changes, annual oil cost savings, and less packaging material to dispose of afterwards. A cleaner, lighter flavor. Because the oil is so stable, there's less of a residual oily flavor, which allows the inherent flavor of the food to be tasted, not that of the oil used. It also allows for opportunities to be blended with other oils. A higher smoke point. We typically see approximately 10 degrees higher when compared to commodity soy or high oleic canola or sunflower oils. Easier cleaning. The reduced polymer formation on hot cooking surfaces leads to less gummy buildup on fryers and equipment. For packaged foods, we see a 2 to 3 times longer shelf life. And a trend we are seeing today in the US food market is consumers wanting foods made with simpler, more easily understood ingredients and having no artificial preservatives. High oleic soy's excellent oxidative stability allows a food manufacturer to remove the synthetic preservatives previously needed in order to achieve the required shelf life for its finished products. To date, there hasn't been a huge amount of research conducted to look at the benefits of high oleic soy in traditional soy foods. However, a Japanese tofu equipment company did conduct a tofu fry test at its pilot plant in order to compare high oleic soybean oil versus the traditionally used canola oil. Results showed an improved fry life, improved condition of the fried tofu skin surface, higher sensory test scores at 12 and 14 days for both improved flavor and texture. In addition, the high oleic soybean oil showed less oil absorption and reduced foaming in the fryers. With the increasing international interest in high oleic soy, USEC has commissioned a new study to compare traditional soy foods produced with high oleic and conventional soybeans. The study will test tempeh, tofu, soy milk, and soy ingredient products produced from high oleic beans and analyze effects on shelf life, yield, taste, texture, and nutrition in comparison to products made from conventional soybeans. And it is targeted to be completed by this summer. In my next few slides, I'll focus on high oleic supply chain. There currently are 3 different high oleic soy traits in various stages of commercial development and availability. And while they all have an oleic content of 75% or greater and a reduced linolenic content, each trait comes from a different seed technologies used in their development. Corteva Agriscience's Plenish trait, marketed under its Pioneer seed brand, was developed through biotechnology and is the most widely grown and commercially available at this time. Missouri Soy's Soylaic trait, which is the focus of my presentation, is a true non-GMO developed from a native trait and is just beginning to be commercially grown. And finally, Calixt's Calino trait was developed through genome editing, but it is only being targeted for use in the US domestic market at this time. So the US soy industry has high oleic varieties suited to whichever attributes your customers value the most. Current soylaic supply chain partners include Benson Hill, Brushville Seed, Clarkson Grain, and Global Processing, who can provide either whole soylaic soybeans and or fully refined oil. For this year's crop, there were 11 different soylaic traded varieties being grown, with relative maturities ranging from an early group 1 suitable for the upper Midwest, all the way to an early group 5 suited for the Mid-Atlantic and Southern growing regions. If you look at the Soybean Zone Map on the right, I've highlighted the approximate geographical footprint for zones 1 through 5. So you can see there are soylaic varieties that could be contract produced across the majority of the US soybean growing regions, and has both a public and private research pipeline that will provide additional varieties over the coming years. The information I'm showing in this table was taken from the varieties technical spec sheets and will be available to you in a 1-page soylaic fact sheet. So I won't go through all the details, but we'll just focus on the averages, which I've highlighted at the bottom. As you can see, the results typically expected from this group of soylaic varieties shows an average oleic content close to 80%, with a linolenic content less than 2%, saturates less than 11%, and with a protein content greater than 36% and oil content over 18%. There have been some rather significant changes in the US high oleic soy market over the last year. Increasing demand for high oleic soybean oil is now beginning to outpace available supply. This is why it's important to understand that forward contracting is necessary to assure availability for your high oleic soy commercial volume needs. High oleic soy is still in early stages of commercialization relative to commodity soy supply chains. The increasing demand has resulted in limited amounts of uncommitted supplies available for immediate sale and or nearby shipment in 2021. Suppliers will certainly be able to provide you with samples in smaller amounts sufficient for lab and pilot plant testing, but large commercial quantities will definitely need to be forward contracted in order for suppliers to coordinate the required identity preserved production all the way back to the farm. To illustrate this, I've mapped out the timeline for production of seed that will be planted in 2022 and supply the 2023 marketing year. So right now, seed companies have finalized their plans for the total quantity of high oleic seed beans needed for the 22 crop, along with the appropriate maturity types needed for where they'll be grown. Those will be planted this spring and will become the high oleic seed beans planted next year. By midsummer, suppliers will be finalizing their plans for the amount of high oleic soy they would like to have available for 2023. Each supplier then determines how many acres they need to contract with farmers for the 22 crop and establishes acreage targets with the respective seed companies for each geographical area where they would like them grown. In August, the seed companies' field teams begin their fall sales campaigns and proceed to sign up farmers for the amount of high oleic acres they intend to contract for delivery to a specific supplier's location. It's important to understand that the majority of farmers buy their next year's seed needs before the end of this year. The 22 crop then gets planted and harvested, and that fall becomes the new crop supply, either as whole high oleic soybeans or processed oil that will be available to buyers throughout 2023. So hopefully you can see why interested buyers should begin purchasing discussions with U.S. suppliers roughly 18 months in advance of when the Ohio Lake soy products are needed in order to assure their availability. Additional information on Soylaic will soon be available on its new website, which is set to go live on May 1st. So with that, I conclude my presentation and thank you for your time and attention. I'll be happy to answer any of your questions.
네, 데이비드 테게더 씨.
Thank you very much, Mr. David Together. So you talked about the Ohio Lake soybean oil. Thank you very much for a very good presentation.
자막이 윌 맥네어 씨로 나가고 있네요. 데이비드 테게더 씨인데, 예. Ohio Lake soybean은
So the Ohio Lake soybean oil, or Ohio Lake soybean, it's truly a new game changer, I think. I was newly introduced in the US, and I think it's going to be a true game changer for the oil industry.
질문을 드리기에 앞서서 우선 미국 공급사분들도 이 자리에 계시고
So we have suppliers and also the Korean buyers and food company representatives are all here. But I think that we are not really familiar with this Ohio Lake soybean oil. So let me briefly explain you about this. About 1.5 years ago, the Lotte Food and Daegyong, they already imported the Ohio Lake soybean oils, and it's already available in the market. And David Tegeter talked about the benefit of the Ohio Lake soybean oil through his presentation. Now, let me give you some questions. Non-GMO Ohio Lake soybean oil demand. What's your demand forecast? How much will the demand be created? And within the United States, the consumption amount and the available amount for export. Can you give us some figures for this?
Okay, I cannot give you figures because when you look at the U.S. market for crushing and processing Ohio Lake soybeans, it is typically, for the oil, and we really don't have a huge market for non-GM Ohio Lake oil at this time. It is still in its infancy and is being developed. But I really can't offer, a specific amount that would be available. That can certainly be discussed as interested buyers can contact the USEC representatives to put you in contact with suppliers here in the US to find out about availability. The one thing that we have seen for overall Ohio Lake soy is a huge demand. As I said, demand is now outstripping supply. And that's why at the very end of my presentation, I focused on the need for forward contracting, which certainly in the food grade soybean industry, you're very familiar with. But I can just reiterate that, it really needs to be discussed almost 18 months in advance so that you don't get into those concerns of what your supply chain is going to experience going forward.
네, 감사합니다.
Thank you very much.
지금 고올레산 대두의 경우
So as for the Ohio Lake soybean,
중요한 변환된 형질은 올레산의
so the biggest change is that the oleic acid content increased a lot, whereas the linolenic acid decreased. I think that that's the biggest change for Ohio Lake soybean. In other words, in terms of the shelf life and also the frying life, you see the Ohio Lake soybean offers a lot of benefits. And most of the Korean soy food manufacturers, they produce tofu, soy milk, paste, and bean sprouts. These are their major products. In other words, they utilize the protein of beans for food processing. So protein is very important for their food processing. And Mr. Takeda talked about the research that is underway right now. So the final conclusion has not been made yet, but using the high oleic soybean, what kind of, in order to produce the tofu or the paste, what kind of benefits we can expect?
That is what the study is aiming to find out, because a lot of research has not been done specifically in the traditional Asian soy foods market. You know, I can only, and I am not a food scientist. You know, I'm a trader at heart, so this is very anecdotal. But you know, when you look at high oleic oil and the fact that of its inherent stability, and that's coming because of, as you said, the huge increase in monounsaturated or oleic acid with the reduction of the polyunsaturated or the more unstable fatty acids. You know, when you look at the whole soy foods and then think about, you know, what amount of oil is residual in those products, it is certainly, in my mind, going to be, you know, more stable. You know, that will definitely should carry through. You know, we have already noted the fact that, you know, we have a very stable oil, which imparts a very clean flavor. It doesn't really show a lot of inherent transfer to a lot of the less desirable tastes that have been associated with other oils. So my overall comment is that I'm very optimistic that from the study, we will see some true benefits of what high oleic soy can do in these applications.
이런 그 식품 가공의 너무 기술적인 부분까지 이야기하고 싶지는 않습니다.
So I don't want to talk about very technical aspects of the food processing, but when it comes to high oleic soybean, in terms of the protein content, compared with the conventional soy, in terms of the protein percentage, do you think there will be any differences, or only the fatty acid profile is changed?
Well, that is going to be very variety specific. You know, as my last slide showed, and it will be available, in general, you know, you're going to see high oleic soybeans that have comparable amounts of crude protein and oil, because those are targets that the soybean breeders do look at when they are looking to advance new varieties. With that said, you know, there are going to be seed companies that could be looking at taking the high oleic trait either for non-GM or GM, and then looking to stack that, you know, with higher protein, with beans that may have better characteristics specifically for the food grade market. Maybe increased sugar or increased protein, or ultimately maybe reduced raffinose and stachanose. So I think the future is very promising as to what those forward high oleic soy traits can deliver for the food industry.
Okay.
We have one more question. I think it's from overseas. It's in English. So let me read the question.
What are the major
That'll be the
factors?
toughest.
Okay. What are the major factors of non-GM high oleic demand increase for non-oil market in the U.S.?
So in the U.S. non-oil market,
제 영어 발음이 좀 안 좋았나 봅니다. 그 미국 시장에서
what are the main
그
reasons
유지
that
시장
drive up
question.
the demand for the
Hello?
non-GM
Yeah, Dave, we can hear you.
high oleic
Okay, good.
soybean?
Protein is the driving force for the increased demand for non-GM soy. As I said, here in the U.S., you know, it is all about the protein needs very much so going into feed, for specific feeding of livestock. So the non-GM oils are kind of secondary, but it is increasing, and I think we will continue as the consumer evolves here in the U.S. And becomes more aware and cognizant. It's going to be a growing segment, just as we have seen everywhere. But by and large, the driving force for non-GM soy is protein.
알겠습니다.
So as for the high oleic soybean or soybean oil, when we use high oleic soybean oil, we are actually still in our infancy. So in terms of the supply availability, supply capacity, and the prices are something that draw a lot of attention. And as for the supply capacity, as mentioned by Mr. Tegeda, you see that the demand outpaces the supply. And therefore, you have to start at least 18 months before and contact the suppliers. And as for the price, I think it's a little bit high compared with the commodity soy. Especially the non-GMO high oleic soybean, the soy lake, I think that there will be higher premium being applied. So compared with the traditional commodity soy, what will be the premium for high oleic non-GMO soybean?
I guess really as an industry representative, I really don't talk too much into pricing. That is something that is best left with the upcoming suppliers in those discussions. But in general, you're correct. When you're growing and looking at high oleic soybeans, because obviously very similar to food grade or non-GM, you want to maintain that traceability and the fact that you need to have a very tight, identity preserved supply chain. So that obviously the farmer needs to be a lot more cognizant of planting considerations, that fields are not getting mixed, that the beans are being binned separately, and that has to play all the way out through the supply chain by whoever touches those soybeans. So in order to maintain purity, that is obviously where those IP costs do come into play. So there will most likely will always be a premium. With that said, both for the GM and the non-GM high oleic soy varieties, their yields, are very comparable, to their conventional counterparts. And we all know that, it really comes down to the premium. A lot of times is very much dictated ultimately by the yield per acre, because the farmer has to be compensated. But with that said, we're very encouraging that, that given the benefit of the U.S. soy industry, we have an immense supply chain capability that has been proven through the decades. And so I am very proud to say that even though there is a premium for high oleic soy, and I'm talking in general, both GM and non-GM, right now, even with the increased demand, because it is so good, and food companies are now converting over to it, it is still the lowest cost, high stability oil from the North American market when you look at its competitors. And that's what the ultimate consumer or the food manufacturer has to realize, is all of those benefits that high oleic soy is contributing that outweighs its premium that has to be paid. So yes, the farmer gets paid a grower premium for a closed loop IP production.
네, 감사합니다. 더 많은 질문을 드리고
Thank you very much. In the interest of time, we may have to wrap up the Q&A session for this presentation. So, Mr. Tegeda, thank you very much.
Thank you.
이번 순서는 미국 식용콩 공급사들을 소개하는
Now,
시간을 갖도록
we'd like
하겠습니다.
to
먼저 네 군데
introduce the U.S.
회사
food
영상을
bean
시청하시고
suppliers.
바로
We'll
이어서 오늘
first
참석하신
look at a video
구독자분들께서
supplied by 4
여러분들께
suppliers,
직접 인사드리는
and the
시간을 갖도록
participating
하겠습니다.
members from the supplier companies will have a short say hello time later on.
Hi, my name is Dia Gali. I'm representing TransGlobe. We are a US-based international agribusiness company. We are exporters of feed as well as food commodities out of the USA. We are proud members of the US Soy Export Association. We have two divisions under TransGlobe. We have the feed division as well as the food division. Under the feed division, we're exporting to feed mills, dairy farms, poultry farms, and integrators all over the world. Under the food division, we are exporting commodities like food grade beans, oils, as well as other variety of IP products. We are exporting right now to 36 countries internationally. We are 100% focused on exports. We have the ability to offer state-of-the-art logistical support, and we pride ourselves of relations with our customers, not only in terms of offering the requirements from the different commodities, but also offering top customer service, supply chain solutions, technical support, whether any questions that they may have on the technical side of things. It will be our pleasure to cooperate with you, and we're always looking for long-term, reliable partnerships with our customers, and I will be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you so much for the opportunity. We appreciate you. We appreciate your business and our collaboration and partnership, and looking forward to working with you. Thank you so much.
As many great things do, we started small. Our grandfather supplied identity-preserved grain to local farmers, giving them access to a steady flow of quality seed. Now, more than a century later, we still take full advantage of our soil's rich profile and region's ample growing season.
I'm the fourth generation of a family that moved to the Red River Valley. We always had pride in the type of quality we produced here.
1906, my great-grandfather started farming the land that we farm today. In the late 1980s, we started exporting food-grade soybeans. It was at a very exciting time.
Today, we've outgrown the single shop our grandfathers used, but the passion is the same. And this is what healthy things do. They grow. Each season, we select varieties to perfectly pair our customers' food production needs with our growers' high-quality non-GMO and organic crops. And each year, we deliver an abundance of traceable food-safe product.
Both of our facilities were designed with food in mind. They aren't a converted seed plant. They weren't made in the 1940s. They're new facilities, and the commitment there to quality and safety is evident.
So, where does your food come from? And growers, where do your crops go? Our seeds have thumbprints, and like a million tiny stories, they take on a life of their own. We help them become something more, something that nourishes and feeds us.
As soon as it's planted, that seed has an identity, and it's assigned a lot number, and that lot is followed and tracked all the way into the processing and shipping and delivery of that same seed that we planted in May. That seed is delivered to the food manufacturer for their ingredient.
This is a food product that is going to some of our best customers in the world. They're people we know, they're people we trust, they're people that we want to give them something that we're proud of.
I think what's first and foremost most important is the relationship that we share with our customers around the world and our producers here.
We're producers first. We have to make sure that we do the right job of producing a quality product.
From the point of planting until it's delivered to their door, they can have the assurance that it's one variety and it's one specific soybean type, and nothing is ever compromised.
From the earth to the plate, from our family to yours. SB&B, heritage of quality since 1906. Grow with us.
For over a century, we've been hard at work delivering supply chain solutions you can count on. Together, we've planted the seeds of success for your business and in your community. Now, let's harvest. Let's join forces to define the next 100 years. We'll lead the way with more than 1,000 minds on our side and a track record of being here when you need us most. We have the freedom to define what's possible, no matter what challenges you're facing, because we have the curiosity and resources to develop the industry's most innovative solutions. We are Schooler, and we're here to say, let's get growing. Let's talk about what you need today and tomorrow. We'll invest in solutions that support your goals and make connections around the world. Together, we'll reimagine what's possible again and again. We'll keep our promises so you can keep moving forward. Here's to the next chapter and to a future that's brighter for all of us. Schooler, let's get growing.
Did you all enjoy the video? So from the DeLong Global Processing, SBNB, and Scola, we have representatives participating today's conference. So starting from the Austin DeLong, would you please introduce yourself first? And brief introduction of your company.
Good day, everyone. This is Austin DeLong with the DeLong Company. We are a sixth-generation agribusiness based out of the Midwest with facilities across the United States. I would just like to say thank you for attending today's program and learning more about U.S. soy. And thank you from the DeLong Company for your business this past year.
감사합니다. 다음으로 글로벌 프로세싱의 짐 트럽 씨, 러 프레터 씨, 마크 앨버슨 씨 인사 말씀 부탁드립니다.
지금 소리가 안 들립니다. 뮤트 하셨나 봐요.
No, I'm off now. Do you hear me? You hear
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Since it came to me to start, I'll be very short and turn it over to my colleagues. Basically, the value of high Lake soy, and soy oil starts with the first shipment. It is not a return that has to wait a long time to have. We have high Lake soybean oil and high Lake soybean whole beans available for shipment next year. And so I'll turn it over to Mark and Rob quickly here.
Yes, hello, and I'll just introduce myself. This is Mark Albertson, and very glad that all of you are joining us today. I'm the newest member of Global Processing. Some of you might know me from my previous career at the Illinois Soybean Association or at ADM, but as Jim had mentioned, we're very excited about having the supply of high oleic soybean oil. Our high oleic soybean oil comes from non-GMO soybeans. And thank you all for being at the conference.
All right, I'm going to try again. Am I able to be heard at this point?
I hear you.
All right, thanks everybody. Sorry, it's raining here. It's a little bit noisy inside this office, but my name is Rob Prather with Global Processing again in Iowa. I learned today that Iowa retook the I believe it's the largest number of non-GMO acres of a state in terms of 19 or 20. I can confirm that with some statistics, but I learned that in the presentation today, so I'm kind of proud about that. Yeah, as Jim said, we've got a lot of things happening, a lot of new products coming on. We've got a lot of new people, and please contact us if you need anything at all. Don't assume what we've said before is the same. Things are changing quickly, and we can do more things than we used to do in the past. So excited to be here. Wish we were there. Look forward to meeting you again in person.
감사합니다. 다음으로 SBNB의 밥 시너
Thank you very much. Next, the Bob Sinner and Ta Sinner from SBNB. Can you also introduce and with a few words of greetings?
여보세요. My name is Bob Sinner. I'm the president of SBNB. We're located in eastern North Dakota. Our family history goes back 115 years. We've been in the export business for a little more than 30 years with an aggressive portfolio of soybeans to fit the tofu, soy milk, soy paste, natto, and sprout markets. We also have a pretty aggressive research program so that we're continually providing new advances for food companies to test and consider. We're excited about the new year. The planting season looks like it's going to be very good. The moisture at planting time is excellent, so I think everyone is pretty optimistic. Obviously, the farm prices are attractive for producers, but it's not so attractive for our customers. I also would like to say that I am the current chair of the Specialty Soy and Grains Alliance, more commonly referred to as SSGA. And along with your USEC office, it can be a reliable source of information for the IP food grade soybean production and supply. We'll be providing updated crop reports throughout the season on our website, www.soyagrainsalliance.org. Thank you, everyone. Thank you a lot for attending. Good to see the familiar names.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Todd Sinner, and just wanted to say hello and wish that we could be there. Look forward to coming back to South Korea soon and seeing some of our longtime friends. We continue to work hard here back in the United States, planting and delivering the soybeans that we know that you all want. And we will continue to do that for many years to come. And so thank you for attending, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
네, 감사합니다.
Thank you very much. Last but not least, from Scholar Company, the Chase Holobeck, can you also introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello, everybody. My name is Chase Holobeck, and I work for the Schooler Company.
The Schooler Company is a 129-year-old employee-owned company that buys, sells, handles, and transports agricultural commodities. We have a very long history in the food grade soybean space, being involved for over 25 years, and work with producers all the way across the United States, and look forward to working with you guys more as we grow and focusing on food grade soybeans. So thank you very much for attending today, and look forward to meeting you guys hopefully in person in the future.
네, 감사합니다.
Yes, thank you very much, everyone.
푸드빈 컨퍼런스에 참여해 주신 한국 측의
We've heard from the soybean suppliers, and also there are members from the soy food industry here in Korea. The time in the U.S. is, I believe, a late evening hour. And once again, I thank you for joining us despite the late hours for the Q&A session. Now, virtual meetings like this one are very convenient and very positive in many respects. However, I think we need some analog as well. So next year, I really hope that we'll be able to see everybody in person, the analog way, and provide tables for the suppliers to introduce themselves to our buyers. And I hope the Korean buyers could also visit the suppliers in the U.S., farms in the U.S. Next year. I hope the conditions improve with regard to COVID-19. As Ms. Ross Rick has begun today's session, she will also wrap up. Now, on the right-hand side, you'll notice that there's a survey asking our participants to fill out at the end of the conference. There's a survey site in the chat window. I would appreciate your feedback. Now, Roz.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. And thank you certainly to all of the speakers and the suppliers who have joined us today. It's certainly not ideal to be doing it, as Dr. Lee said, in the digital world. It would be much better to do it in the analog world, and we will get there again. However, given the current environment, I think that we continue to be able to maintain some connection and provide good information. So hopefully you all were able to learn something today from the various speakers. It may have created even more questions that as you reflect upon it in the coming days. So please do reach out to our office. Dr. Lee and Ji-suk will be happy to follow up with any of the speakers, as well as get you additional information. Again, truly appreciate the partnership we have with the Korean soy food industry. We value the relationship and see it as being a mutually beneficial partnership, to where we rely upon one another for our successes. And so as we heard the suppliers talking about their research and development they're doing, as well as the great efforts they're going through to continue to deliver the high quality product. And we heard from our farmer who is producing the product. And I think that you can see there's great care taken through the entire value chain. And we will continue to take that great care to deliver you the very best product. But again, thank you so very much for joining us today. We look forward to continuing the conversation, and have a very good week. Stay safe until we see you again.
감사합니다.
Thank you very much. And this will conclude our conference. Thank you.